How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. In this video, I will be speaking in English and explaining the necessities and the basics of IELTS speaking. Alright, so the IELTS speaking is in 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes long. It's a one-on-one interaction and it's recorded, meaning that the entire interview is recorded on a tape recorder for reasons that other examiners might listen to your interview once again after the end of the actual interview session. There are three phases, phase 1 being the introduction, phase 2 individual long run, and phase 3 extension. Meaning of them is that in the phase 1, which lasts between 3 to 5 minutes, you answer questions about yourself, your family, your hometown, job, studies, and other familiar topics. So these topics are very tangible. You've been asked about them before. You've talked about them before, surely. And these are the topics that you know about that don't require any special knowledge or experience. Phase 2 is individual long run, which means that in here you will have to talk alone and there's nobody else that asks you any questions, so the examiner does not interrupt or ask you any questions meanwhile that you're speaking. In this part, you're given a topic on a card. You have 1 minute to prepare a talk and you speak for 1 to 2 minutes on the topic without being interrupted. So basically, you're given a cue card. Cue card is this card on which the question is written with 4 WH questions. As an example, for example, you have to talk about the last time that you went on vacation, and you would have to say where it was, when it was, and what happened, and who you went with, and all that stuff. So the 1 minute preparation time, you're given a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper to take notes on, and we're going to talk about how to take a note, and we're going to talk about what exactly you need to do in phase 2. Phase 3 is an extension. Extension means extrapolation. You need to extend the responses as long as possible. You need to answer the question as extensively as possible. So you answer verbal questions discussing more abstract ideas thematically linked to the topic of part 2. So what exactly it is here in phase 3, once again, it's a one-on-one interview, one-on-one interaction where the examiner asks you questions, but unlike phase 1, the questions are no longer tangible, they're academic, and they require thinking time, and they require you to analyze and extrapolate and philosophize the answers in order to kind of provide an adequately sized response. And by that, here ideas are thematically linked to the topic of part 2. It means that ideas are not directly related to what you talked about in phase 2. They're thematically related, meaning that if in phase 2 you talked about the last time you went on vacation, phase 3 might be about the tourism industry. If you talked about your favorite teacher back in high school, phase 3 might be about educational system in your country. So the theme is the same, but they're not exactly the same. And now we're gonna go and cover some basic parts of each phase together. Alright, phase 1, introduction. So the likely topics to be asked include, but are not limited to, family, education, job, likes and dislikes, hobbies, hometown, neighborhood, country, food, shopping, health, and personality, and a couple of more stuff. So these topics might be asked of you in phase 1. These topics, as you see, are familiar. You've talked about them, you know about your family, you know about your education, you know about your likes and dislikes, what you like, what you don't like, you know about your hobbies, what do you do in your free time and sort of thing, what hobbies you have and what shopping habits you have, and foods that you dislike and you like. So the questions are different and they could be about a variety of topics altogether. So here I've provided 2 questions and a couple of alternative answers that you can provide in phase 1. So imagine the examiner asks you this question: can you tell me a little bit about your family? The answers here, this is one of the answers, and this is one, and this is one. So there are 3 different answers. I come from a big family of 4 children. I have 3 sisters and 1 brother. I'm the oldest. Another answer: I am an only child and I live with my parents. It's sometimes difficult having no siblings. Another response, well, I only have a sister and she's older than I am. I live with my parents. Now, you see that the answers are not too long and they're not too short either. So, you're not supposed to provide a very short response. You're supposed to extend the answers a little bit so as to give a content of a response to the question. Meaning that if the question is basically like a yes/no question, just like this one, do you often argue with your parents? If this question was asked of you outside the field of IELTS, you would basically say yes or no, or give a very short response. But that is not adequate in IELTS format. In IELTS, you need to provide reasons, provide explanation as to why yes or why no. So the question here is, do you often argue with your parents? Well, not really. My parents and I get along quite well, and we very rarely have arguments. So that you see here, the answer to the question is provided here. Well, not really. And if we gave this answer only, this would be a very short response and this would not get you the score that you need. You need to provide explanations as to why yes and why no. Look at this response here. Oh yes, very much. I usually have arguments with them about household chores. They keep nagging. To be honest, I argue more with my mom than with my dad. My dad is very understanding. My mom, however, complains a lot. So, saying yes or no is only a very small part of your response, and then after that you will have to provide an adequately sized response to that. If the question is like a yes/no question, do you, will you, after saying yes or no, you will have to provide explanations. And of course, if you saw here, the response to the questions were not just merely yes or no's, they were like, well, not really. Oh yes, very much. To be honest. So the questions are more fluid, they're more colorful than just saying yes or no to a question, which we will get to later. And more questions here in phase 1. What do you like the most about traveling? Visiting new places. I just love exploring new areas, talking to new people. It's really refreshing. Or, I love history and historical places, so I really enjoy seeing those. I particularly love learning about them as I see them. Another question, would you prefer traveling alone or with a group? I particularly love traveling with a group, since there are more things to do when you're with others. Or, I enjoy going on solo trips. Being on my own gives me a feeling of self-understanding. One thing you need to pay attention to, there is no right or wrong answer to these questions. You're not wrong, you're not right, so there's no feeling of is this answer going to be correct? A couple of tips about phase 1. Practice the fairly predictable areas. So by that it means that the topics basically revolve around very familiar topics such as family, hometown, areas such as your likes and dislikes, your hobbies, the things that you know about yourself. If you don't know about them, you need to think about them. You need to think about, what are my hobbies? What do I do in my free time? If I had to stay home, how would I entertain myself? Who are my family members? How many brothers and sisters do I have, and what are their characteristics like? Do I know my brother? Do I know his negative characteristic features? Do I know his positive characteristic features? So these are the areas that are fairly predictable, and you're almost very knowledgeable about the topics that you're asked. Give full answers, no yes/no answers. So basically, what we talked about previously is give full answers. There are no yes or no answers. Even if you do give a response, such as a yes or a no, you would have to provide a lengthy response or an explanation as to why yes and why no. So the question could be, do you like traveling? So it's a very simple and a straightforward question. Do you like traveling? And instead of saying yes, or yes I do, or very much, you would have to provide explanation. It would be something like, oh yes, very much, I love traveling, and I love seeing new places. I've always dreamed of going to, for example, foreign countries. So the answer needs to be adequate, it needs to be lengthy. First answer the question and then add info. This is really important because a lot of people actually start explaining before they actually respond to the question. So if the question is, do you like traveling? You will have to first either say if you do like traveling or you don't like traveling. So you would have to say yes or no or definitely, of course, or absolutely not. First, answer the question. Is it a yes or a no? And then add information. Do not do it the other way around. Try to sound positive, rather loud and expressive, which means that, well, let me tell you, positivity and being loud does not contribute to your score. So the examiner will not give you an extra bonus on top of your score because you seemed positive or you were rather loud. No. Being positive, being loud, and being expressive helps you in order to give much better responses, and it makes you sound better. It makes you sound intonative. You will intonate your responses. You will go up and down instead of being a flatliner, and it will make your pronunciations much better if you tuck in yourself, and if you shy away, you will give very quiet responses, you will not be expressive, and you will not sound positive, which will indirectly and negatively affect your score. So if you talk, well, yes, I have always dreamed of traveling to other foreign countries, and I am. So when you are positive, when you sound positive, when you sound cheerful, on top of that, when you sound loud and expressive, this will indirectly affect your score positively. What about phase 2? Phase 2 is an individual long run, the meaning of which, as I've previously said, is where you will talk on a topic that you're given for 1 to 2 minutes. So a cue card is given to the candidate. A cue card is a very small card on which something is written, which I will show you a sample of shortly. So you are given a cue card and a 1 minute preparation time. A 1 minute, a 60-second preparation time is given to you for you to write down all the notes that you require in order to be able to talk for the next 1 to 2 minutes. So the candidate is supposed to talk for 1 to 2 minutes, and the topic cards are general and unrelated to your personal experience. Like what? Look at here. This is an example of a cue card. This is what you will be given by the examiner. Describe someone that you admire. Okay, now what? You should say who he or she is, why you admire him or her, when you first saw him or her, and explain how he or she has influenced the way you think. So you see there are 4 bullet points here in the form of WH questions. So you will be given a prompt here, like describe someone that you admire. Talk about the last time you went on vacation. Describe the first day of school. So it's all about describing something. And then, in order for you to be able to talk about things and know what you need to talk about, the card will give you these bullet points, which are WH questions. Who, where, why, how, with whom. Once you're given this cue card, you're also given a paper and a pen so that you can write your notes on that paper. Why do you need a note? Well, a note is needed for you to remember what you are going to talk about. Because trust me, if you do not take notes, you will almost always forget what you had planned to mention in your long run. So you will need to take notes. And how do you take notes? Well, notes need to be small. They need to be broken down. You're not supposed to write any sentences. You're supposed to write as little as possible. For example, if the person you admire is one of your professors back in university days, you don't write university days, Professor Mr. Johnson. No, this would be a relatively long response. All the notes need to be written as short as possible. So the things you write are not supposed to be sentences, but words, even broken words. For example, if you're going to write the word Tehran, you might as well write the word T-E-H, because you will understand as Tehran and nobody else will. They don't have to because it's your notes. So you need to, first, stay away from sentences, and if you can, break down the words to have. Why? Because 60 seconds is not a long time for you to be able to look at the cue card and think of all the details that you want to talk about and write them down in that window of 60 seconds. This is a sample response that one of the candidates gives to answer the cue cards questions. The person who I admire very much is my math teacher. I admire her for a lot of reasons. She is the smartest woman I know. She tries a lot to be the best in her job. I've learned a lot from her, and she has always been very friendly and helpful whenever I had a problem or question to ask her. The first time I saw her was when I was in 6th grade. She was not my teacher then. I met her during an activity for the whole school, where she was teaching us how to use math to solve our everyday problems. I would say that she has changed the way I think about the world. She's taught me to be practical and logical in my problem-solving methods. She's also given me so many life lessons, and that's why I love her so much. Well, this could be the response that you give in the duration of 1 to 2 minutes. Disclaimer, you're not supposed to be just talking non-stop. Nobody does that. You will be pausing, you'll be thinking, you'll be using like these, and your entirety of 120 seconds will be filled with you thinking a little bit, pausing a little bit, going through your notes a little bit. It's not going to be you talking non-stop all till the end of phase 2. That's not going to be the case. If we want to put it in a real-life scenario, it would be like this. Well, the person who I admire very much is my math teacher. I admire her for a lot of reasons, actually, because she is the smartest woman I know. You repeat yourself, you stutter, you pause, you think, so you don't have to talk non-stop for the entirety of 120 seconds. You're supposed to keep the coherence and the cohesion of your speech, but you're not supposed to do that robotic non-stop speaking. Nobody does that, so you don't have to worry about that. Some tips about phase 2 here are write notes, not sentences, break them down. So one thing that I did cover a while ago is if you're writing notes, do not write sentences ever. Break down the words if you can, so that you save time for yourself to look at the note and also think about what you're going to say at the end of having written out all the notes. Go through the bullets in order and don't miss out. This is really important because let me go back a little bit to the bullet points. You need to go through the bullet points in order. So you're not supposed to just talk about who the person is and then talk about when you saw them and go back to talk about why you admire them. So they all need to be in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is why you need to take a look at your cue card so as not to forget what you're talking about and what is the next thing you're going to talk about. Keep talking. Don't go off topic. Well, off topic is, some people go off topic. They talk about some things that are entirely very unrelated to what the cue card asks them to talk about. Let me tell you something. It is okay to stray away a little bit when you're talking. It's okay. But if you stay off topic for too long, and if you keep talking about something very unrelated, you will lose score. So try to stay on topic and keep talking. And let me clarify this again. Keep talking doesn't mean talk for the duration of 120 seconds with no pause. It means just don't take long pauses. Don't stop for a long time. You need to keep your fluency and the coherence of your speech. Refer to your notes and cue card. This is something that a lot of people don't do. It's one of the biggest mistakes that they can make. is as soon as the examiner asks them to talk, they just stare into the eyes of the examiner. They forget to take a look at their notes, which they spent almost a minute to take, and they never look at the cue card. These are two very big mistakes. One, not looking at cue card will cause that you forget what order you need to take. So you might make a mistake and talk about the bullet points out of order because you didn't take a look at your cue card. And notes. Why do you take a note and not take a look at them? You need to take notes, and you need to take a look at your notes as you're talking. So let me get it clear. When you're talking, there are three places that you just glance over and back. 1. The examiner's face. 2. The notes. 3. Cue card. Your eyes will be just skimming and hovering through all of these three places. Don't forget to use your notes, and do not forget to use your cue card. Look at them so that you don't forget what you're saying. Make sure to talk as lively as possible. So one of the things we did cover in phase 1 is that being expressive, being loud, being lively actually helps you with your presentation. It doesn't directly affect your score, but it will indirectly affect your pronunciation, your intonation, and everything else in that regard. Now we go to phase 3. Phase 3 is the last phase, which is the most difficult part. It's called extension, aka discussion. In this phase, the same as phase 1, the examiner will ask you questions, but here the topics are not going to be very understandable or easy to talk about. There will be a discussion about a topic thematically related to the part 2 topic. So as I said, whatever you talk about in phase 2, you will be asked some questions that are thematically the same as part 2 in your third phase. Such as what? Look at the question here. In your opinion, how can the problem of air pollution be solved? So, it's not like every day you're asked about how to solve problem of air pollution. So these questions sometimes require academic knowledge. But regardless, you need to be able to extend your answers, provide reasons as to why or why not you think something. So your answers need to be philosophically extrapolated or extended so that you convincingly respond the question as adequately as possible. This is a sample response to the question. There are a number of ways as to how we can decrease or potentially eliminate air pollution. A major method would be promoting environmental education. In other words, teach the public about the dangers of air toxicity and how they can each contribute to the removal of it in our cities. There's also more strict measures such as imposing vehicle emission standards and extending environmentally friendly means of transport. In general, I believe it's critical that individuals understand the concept of environment and reduction. Well, you see that. You get the impression of, wow, okay, so this is difficult. Yes and no. It is difficult because you need to be able to academically and philosophically extend your response, provide reasons, provide adequate and logical reasons for your responses. Easy because there is no right or wrong answer, so you don't have to be correct in terms of the Academy of Air Pollution. You're not an expert in air pollution. I'm not an expert in air pollution. I've never been asked about how to solve air pollution, but I have a general knowledge of air pollution. I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I know some basics of how people can reduce air pollution. 1. They can reduce their car use. They can be educated on media. So there are a lot of things that you basically generally know about each of the questions that are asked. So there isn't much to really worry about. The only thing that you need to be paying attention to is the presentation of your response. Meaning that your grammar needs to be accurate and it needs to be colorful. There's gotta be a range of vocabulary. There's gotta be a range of grammar in your response. Your lexical resource is really important, meaning that you need to use related vocabulary in order to base your responses on. Alright, so phase 3 tips here include there is no right or wrong answer. This is really important. You're not judged based on your answer. You're judged based on how you give the answer. So it's your English that is evaluated, your vocabulary, your grammar, your fluency, not your opinion. Well, as long as your opinion is logical enough, everything is fine. So don't worry about if your answer is morally wrong or right. Give the answer if you think it is logical and don't worry about it. Give informed and appropriate responses. By that, it means that you need to extend the answers, and your answers need to be informed. They need to be knowledgeable. Extend your responses. Extrapolate them. Stretch them. Don't give short answers. In phase 3, there's gotta be a very big difference between the way you answer in phase 1 and phase 3. Phase 3, the answers need to be in-depth, they need to be deep, they need to be informed. Support your opinion, don't just list them. This is really important. How? Imagine the question is, what are some of the negative characteristics a boss can have? A simple question, but you say that some of the negative characteristics that a boss can have are insecurity, dogmatism, selfishness. So you see what you're doing? You're listing them. Instead of listing things, you're supposed to extend and support whatever you list. As an example, if you give a cause or solution to air pollution problem, you would say that one of the solutions is public education. Before you go to another solution, you need to extend and support how public education can help reduce air pollution. Something like this. I believe one of the solutions to the reduction of air pollution is public education. By that, I mean the public need to be told about what to do and what not to do in order to eliminate or reduce the air pollution in our cities. So you see, you need to support your listings before you go to another one. Thank you very much for watching this video. It was a very basic and a very summarized version of IELTS Speaking. If you have any questions regarding any part of IELTS Speaking, please let me know down in the comments. Thank you very much, and I will catch you in the next one.